Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F-words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
Welcome to Season 4 of the Knack 4 Business Podcast.
Before we get into today's conversation, Canada Growth Network. Here's the math. A full CRM, email marketing, funnels, and automations for less than a coffee a day. That's $47 a month Canadian with a $1 trial to start. If you're building a business and still duct taping tools together, check the link in the show notes.
So, from an audience perspective, why are you carrying all this pressure and still feeling like you are failing? Well, our guest will unpack why mental health isn't a personal weakness or label to manage, but a leadership and system design issue. She'll explain how mental fitness, built through behavior, relationships, and daily skills, helps founders, leaders, and teams perform under pressure without burning out, and how organizations can design environments that support resilience instead of quietly breaking people down. If you're a business owner, leader, or professional feeling stretched thin, stay with this conversation. Listen in to learn how to build mental fitness before burnout hits, and how to lead in a way that protects performance and people. Our guest today is Dr. Jackie Kinley from AIR Institutes. She's a psychiatrist, resilience strategist, and the founder and CEO of Atlantic Institute of Resilience, also known as AIR Institutes. With decades of experience at the intersection of mental health, behavior science, leadership, and system designs, she challenges the traditional problem-focused approach to mental health and replaces it with a proactive, skills-based model she calls mental fitness. Her work focuses on behavior, relationships, and self-awareness, rather than labels or pathology, helping individuals, leaders, and organizations build their psychological strength, perform under pressure, adapt to change, and sustain results over time. At AIR, she introduces a people and performance operating system most business education skips, driven by clear and bold mission to transform how we promote mental health by building it, not just treating it. Dr. Jackie, an absolute pleasure having you here today. Welcome. And do you have a favorite quote or saying, man?
You know what? I'll kick it off with one that I like. It's not about feeling better. It's about getting better at feeling. And that's kind of related to mental fitness. So I'm sure we'll get into that. But I think that's really important, right? Because we're going to talk about people, leaders, and how they support people and helping people get, psychologically stronger, more mentally fit, requires building emotional intelligence and a lot of other things. So oftentimes we confuse that with treating illness. So yeah, it's about getting better at feeling, not feeling better.
So, do you have any business taglines you work with?
Business taglines. I often say that burnout is not a personal failure; it's a failure of leadership and system. Right. So I think it's an important differentiation. People often blame burnout on an individual, and they don't realize what the role of the leader is in creating systems and organization to protect people. Right.
So, what drove you're a psychiatrist, which means you're a medical doctor,
Mhm.
as opposed to a psychologist, but kind of parallel paths. What brought you into the psychiatric field?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think a lot of the things diverged in my life. I come from a line of physicians, right? A very sort of logical, a lot of surgeons, right? A sort of hands-on kind of background. And so I was really enamored with, medicine, sort of groomed for it. But I worked as a ER physician and a family physician, and I started to see that a lot of the ailments that sort of befell people were associated with mindsets and lifestyles, and so that there were choices. And so instead of I wanted to go upstream and actually get to root causes, and that really required me to understand people, understand what motivated people, what drove people, their behaviors, and then how to support them to make better choices and to become their best selves, right? So it was a little bit of a diversion into from mainstream medicine, or what I like to think of as sort of biological medicine, to really, um, um, you know, um, psychological, understanding the mind, not just the body.
It's interesting, and I know there's a world of information out there because the mental health of the person, and of
Hmm.
course, people work in businesses. It's not automatons or robots. So what brought you into the focus into the space of business and leadership? Again, from being an ER physician, it's
Yeah,
ta-da! I'm here. I'm presenting with an issue, as
yeah.
opposed to here's a workplace where you have 1,000 people.
Well, I think, you know, g getting to business was sort of the last step. I think the first step was getting out of sort of a biological, sort of, fatalistic kind of framework and starting to understand, right, that people had agency and autonomy, and they had choice, and they had more control over their mental health, than they thought they did. So that sort of, I was able to kind of step outside of, mainstream psychiatry. I like to think of myself as a reformed psychiatrist. Now I don't see things as fatalistic, right? I mean, I see potential in people, and I see internal pharmacy, that we don't necessarily have to rely on external pharmacy, that people have the capacity to improve themselves, right? And so that brought me into the world of resilience, right? So how do we strengthen people? And how do we support them and build their mental fitness? The idea that your brain's like a muscle, like any other muscle. We can develop it with practice and with coaching, all kinds of things. But then when I stepped into the world, so initially, it's interesting, Bernie. Initially, I just wanted to go out and help students. I was director of training at the university hospital I'm at, and I was astounded by the number of physicians that were off work because of stress. And I was like, my goodness, they're coming into the workplace. There's a lot of demands, and they don't have the resource to be able to meet those demands psychologically. Much more focused on the resource side of things, on the individual. So started the resilience training, started doing mental fitness training with people, very much focused on the individual. But what I learned very quickly when I stepped into the business world was that, there are a lot of demands at work. Sometimes saying, you just need to suck it up, or you just need to pull up your socks and, tough it out like I did, that's actually really not helpful. And it actually can add insult to injury, right? Because some of the demands at work are actually harmful. There are psychosocial hazards in the workplace. Leaders' role is to make sure that organizations perform, right? That they're responsible for outcomes. And part of that outcome is, managing financial risk, managing all processes, all kinds of things, but also it's overseeing the management of people, because, your people are your resources. And so leaders play a role in creating systems that support and develop their people so that they can rise to meet the demands of the work. So there was a bit of a shift, from the individual to the system, and to the leader as the one who leads and ultimately helps to design and develop and make sure that those systems are effectively executed, right?
Interesting, as you were describing that. Well, no, having worked in the healthcare industry myself for 36 years and having gone through there's certain compliance or testing you have to go through training.
Mhm.
If you see electricity and water, don't join the two, or how to use a fire extinguisher. Don't drink the stuff. Don't put it on your skin.
That's exactly right.
The women's training, right? It's a two-pronged question. Is there something that usually typically, we're talking about the Canadian models right now, whether it's on the East
Mhm.
Coast or here in Ontario or even out West. Was there a compliance issue? Here's the toxic material where WHIMS is happening. Is there something that identifies that for the mental health element of
Is
these
that a is
agencies?
that a is that a plant question? I don't know if you realize this, Bernie, but it's so interesting. Shifted to psychosocial hazards, right? This idea that there are hazards, and behaviors are
Yeah,
psychosocial hazards, right? People can become hazardous, right? And
yeah,
so not out of conscious intention, hopefully, right?
yeah,
I always
yeah.
assume good intent, But the answer to your question is yes. Just launched a course called WIBIS, which is the equivalent of WHMIS, but whereas WHMIS is hazardous materials, WIBIS is workplace hazardous behavior identification system. And I come back to the word system because it needs to be systematic. It needs to be there needs to be awareness and education and skills in order to ensure that we properly address and manage workplace hazards, including hazardous behavior. And so the answer to your question is yes, now there is. With regards to compliance, that's a really interesting question because up until now, no, there has not been compliance, but there will, which is interesting because in Canada, we have something called the Mental Health Commission of Canada. People might have heard about it, and they have a national standard, they call it national standard of the 13, factors at work. And it's a little bit motherhood. These are the things, these are the expectations, tells you kind of what is expected of you, but it doesn't tell you how to do it, right? And so when there's going to be compliance issues, companies are going to be struggling. Organizations are going to struggle because it's, as I say, it's kind of common sense. Create a healthy culture, manage workloads, all of these things. But how do you operationalize that? What does that look like? And really, that's what the WIBIS course is designed to address is how do I recognize hazardous behaviors? How do I recognize at an individual level, at a team level, at a managerial level, and at a leadership level, right? Because hazards, aren't just on the front line. They can be up in the C-suite, right? And so it's recognizing those things, implementing, right? The proper inter interventions and always assuming no malintent, right? It's a developmental model. And then how do I sustain healthy behaviors and healthy culture, and what are the controls that I need to put in place, and how do I evaluate it, which is what we call the RISE operating system. So resilient organizations rise above the rest because they have these operating systems in place where they identify psychosocial hazards, they know how to manage them, and they get out front of them where they develop and support their people so they can perform well.
So is that more occupational health or human resources sided or both?
Well, this is such a fascinating question because I think these functions and organizations have been siloed. And the reality is resilience really sits at the end, really is about behavioral health. And behavioral health relates not only to mental health, but safety and performance. So it sits in the middle of, HR, OC health, right? Because
Yeah.
the more mentally fit, you just like physical fitness, more mentally fit you are, the less likely you are if you go out and run a mile to, strain your ankle. The more psychologically prepared you are for the work, the more ready you are, the less likely you are to be strained or injured. It really sort of the linchpin in my mind, right? It sort of pulls things together in a unified way where things have been very separate and siloed.
Wow.
That's a mouthful. There you go.
No, and it's interesting because I've seen the system in play, and the goal is always to have good outcomes. And goodness knows there's a lot of institutions out there that have gone, well, let's buy this platform. And usually there's everything from Disney, apparently,
Yeah.
to there's one out of Florida, and his name Studer
Okay.
is another one, right? It's all about making that culture and just it's a whole process. And yeah, it's usually a
What
purchase. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think these are really great effort, and all of these are necessary, but often in and of themselves, they're insufficient. And I think it really comes back to having a unifying theory and really understanding. And I think that's where I've been in a very fortunate position where I have at the interface between mental health, performance, and now leadership and business. And so I've been kind of in the middle of all of it. So it's a sort of a privileged position where I've been able to see the gap and the huge gap, right? And this is what happens in organizations, right? All of a sudden, you have an individual, who you've brought on board, they're doing pretty well, and all of a sudden their performance starts to lag, and you don't know what it is, right? "Oh, I'm kinda burning out, I'm not feeling good, I'm stretched, I'm stressed," and up until this point, there's been no way to identify, what's actually missing, you know? In terms of behavior, like what are they doing or not doing, right? To protect and support themselves, and how what demands are being placed on them. And so we really sit in the middle of that, where we help to tease that apart, so that when all of a sudden somebody starts to lag, or they start to burn out, instead of them showing up at HR with a sick note, right? And then all of a sudden they're in that black box. At best of luck when you get into the mental health system. I often say, if you weren't crazy before you got into it, you'll be crazy when you get there, because it is a crazy making. It's well designed if you're ill, but I'll tell you, it's a system to navigate. It medicalizes things because it's designed to diagnose and treat illness. It's not designed to promote health and performance. That's not what it does, right? So you either get somebody coming in with a sick note, or performance managing them, right? Then all of a sudden they're in HR's office and you're performance managing them. And in the middle of those two, there's a development opportunity. There's a development opportunity, which is, okay, what are the resources psychologically that this individual has? And we can assess that. That's how we actually entered most of these businesses in the first place. Was they were like, well, how do you know? And we're like, we have a resilience assessment. It's functional. How do you respond to stress? What do you do? Right? Resilience is, what do you do? It's a skill set, and you learn it, right? And so we come in, we assess individuals' current capacity, and then we help, and the assessment in and of itself, I'm not an assess and leave gal. I guess this is one of the things I don't like about these personality tests and these different tests. You go in, oh, I'm a pink, or I'm a blue, or I'm a purple, whatever. I don't think that way. I think that, hey, we all have a little bit of pink, we all have a little bit of blue, we all have a little bit of this and that, and we just want more of what we need. We can get it. So the assessment actually maps onto a curriculum, a program, the Resilience Inside Out training. And we have a brain gym, digital platform. So it's asynchronous. People can get on and they can do it. They get a micro coach, an individual, and this is important, Bernie, micro coaching, not a 50-minute session where you sit around and chit chat with somebody. Like when you go to the gym, if you go to the gym and you meet your trainer and you spend 60 minutes talking to your trainer and you don't touch a weight, good luck, right? And a lot of times, when people go, 45, 50 minutes, you're catching up, you're talking, and out you go, and nothing's changed. You might feel better because you've, had an opportunity to feel the support and the care, but ultimately you haven't you haven't developed any new skills. And this is what mental fit training is. It's, what are the skills that I need? And it maps onto, what are the behaviors that I need to do when I'm under stress? And we coach people in that. It's applied coaching. Skills are in the brain gym, and then the coaching is applying them in your life. Micro coaching, 20 minutes. People are busy. Time's valuable. Leaders don't want to be wasting a lot of money on clinical services, which are incredibly expensive. And, when you can combine technology and leverage that, with micro support, micro learning, support, that's flexible, it's affordable, accessible, it just makes all the difference, right?
So you've observed this, you have a process to help get that fitness going, and you've put it under something that's, I think, is really kind of a very cool name called AIR, or that's an acronym for Atlantic Institute of Resilience.
Mhm.
So
Air is, and everyone needs air, Bernie. Yeah.
apparently, yeah, no, yes, it is. I think it's a fantastic use of the many concepts. What? How did this gem come to fruition? Like you saw the issue, and from a business perspective, what made you say, well, if I take this, and this, I
Mhm.
put it together in a box of sorts, or
Mhm.
layers. You have an app, and we'll get into that
Yeah.
a little bit later on. And you have like, and now people are going, well, how do you know that works? I have another colleague of mine. He does mindfulness training, and he was
Of
talking to
course,
some
yeah.
people. He was talking to people that were in the enforcement industry, and they're older. And I'm looking at him going, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, all my imagery, all my memories of those folk. They'd be looking at him going, yeah, pound salt, buddy. And he flipped it around and he used the concept to, listen, do you want to have a heart attack? No. Okay, well, let's work this through, right? So that was a
Absolutely.
point of proof. What do you use for point of proof to convince people, listen, this is all the stuff that's coming in, and this is where you'll gain. First, you people, and then because eventually there's going to be someone from finance that's going,
Yeah,
what's my ROI?
absolutely.
They never run away, those folks.
No, but and I really like that question because I think that you need different proof of concept for different people. I mean, because different things are going to be relevant to different people, right? So
Yeah.
I think probably, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, when we first started, it was really just the results, like the outcomes with people. Now, I don't know if you're, you know, followers. I don't know. Our listeners know, but I actually come from, from that medical background. My background was running a trauma program at the hospital, right? And I still run a trauma program, complex trauma, but out of that, we had to research our results, right? And so we started working with people and measuring, right? Before and after, their psychological strength, their resilience, right? And so just with that at an individual level, measuring those outcomes, the decrease in burnout, right? The decrease in depression and anxiety, which are not targets. It's not a therapy, but it's therapeutic, boy, right? So, because when people feel better, when they're stronger, again, when they're mentally stronger, they feel better, right? And so at an individual level, it's often very easy, to make it relevant to individuals. There has to be a felt need for it. Nobody's going to go to the gym if they don't think they need the gym. So, you demonstrate need, right? And, do you want to be better at work? Do you want your relationships at home to be better? Do you want to have more peace of mind, feel more empowered, more confident? Absolutely. So the point of entry for us is usually with the individual, with the assessment. It's intuitive, it's exceedingly helpful for people. It gives them a ton of insight into, "Oh, well, that's just my personality." No, it's not. It's your tendencies, it's your mental habits. "Oh, I'm right-handed." Yes, you are, because you always use your right hand. Could you use your left hand? Probably. So it opens up for people a whole world of potential and possibility that they didn't know they had. Then, if you're talking to managers and, sort of team leaders, one of the things that we noticed is with training, safety went up. Civility started to go up at work. Cultures got better, right? So people are like, "Oh my goodness," right? So then you go in and we've been working with teams, been able to measure those outcomes, right? Then when people feel better, they show up better. They have the capacity to enter into conversations that are difficult as opposed to just losing it or walking out of the room. Their capacity to engage meaningfully in their work, right? And so managers, my goodness, this is a good thing. And at the leadership level, at the table of finance, at the senior team, is demonstrating the reduction in sick time and the reduction in disability costs. Because I got to when somebody goes off on a mental health leave, the chances of them coming back to work when they go from short to long term, incredibly low, incredibly low. Like all of a sudden, like and the number of disability claims, the majority of them in most organizations are mental health claims. I mean, the cost of mental health to organizations is absolutely huge. A lot of them don't measure it. A lot of them don't capture it. If they start to dig into their numbers, it's remarkable. And the cost of a coaching, and so this is where we got our foothold. This is where we got our evidence. Is all of a sudden, we did a Can Health project with Shannock's large, kind of nursing home across the, country. You can find this online with Can Health. Our outcomes were remarkable in terms of the usage, in terms of the satisfaction, of the program. People loved it. Up and their and so looking at the impact that has on potential sick time, on actual sick time, baseline disability costs, right? And those are the systems that we're building going forward, right? Being able to measure those things with organizations. It's a win-win.
There's a myriad of another series of questions now. You have a successful model. I know you're coming out of the East Coast. You're looking to go right across Canada, North America, or
We would absolutely go global. I mean, we have worked in other, countries. I've done other work besides the US, right? Obviously. We have coached, internationally, right? So absolutely. Now, one of the things is because we have the brain gym, because we're able to leverage the digital platform, and because we have micro coaching and we can do it live but virtual, um, access is not a barrier for us. right? So we can scale it up, right? So that's why we pivoted into requiring and leveraging technology, because the demand for what we were offering was pulling us in that direction. Look at me. I am not a computer person. Yeah, I'm not a technology person. It's like research, but out of necessity, that's the birthplace of innovation. Boy, I tell you, we had to innovate, and we have, right? We have, and it's fun. It's great to see people being able to. It democratizes access to mental health, right? Right, which is a
Yeah.
wonderful thing, and and it and it it empowers organizations. These are complex times, Bernie. The other thing, boy, you put me on. I could talk a long time. The thing I do ads, one of these sort of de facto findings, that we didn't expect, which is where the WIBIS course was born out of, this workplace hazardous behavior course. We discovered that safety improved, and we were like, hmm. And now there's this huge thing about psychological safety at work. Everybody's kind of on eggshells. What can I say? What can I not say? And there's all this, because there's big changes happening, right? And with change is uncertainty and all kinds of stuff. People are adapting. So we were able to sort of say, wow, we also sit in the behavioral health and safety space, and so this is really important. And so 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 it's been rewarding in the sense that not just for the individuals that we coach, but for the
Yeah.
managers and leaders that are, managing these very complex systems, right? And in a very complex, socio-political environment, right? And
Yeah.
so it's just an added bonus that we help them to navigate that and to make sense of it, right? Because it appears nonsensical, but it's not. It makes sense, right? When we
It,
understand people.
it almost seems like a domino effect. If you're resolving one issue, it ripples out, or
Yeah.
addresses other issues. Oh, a couple of quick questions about the coaching sessions
Mhm.
and the training sessions. Is this something like, if I'm training to a marathon, I know I got to
Yeah.
do so much prep work, like diets involved, a whole
Yeah.
cascade of things. What is the effort? Like some people, and I'm going to go back to past experience. Oh, you have to go on a course. It's going to be a day off here. The stuff
Yeah.
you talked about earlier. And then, we gotta and then there's a reminder, and once you got the rhythm of it though, right, you knew
Yeah.
what to do, right? It's like learning how to use a Mac, and you only used a Windows platform.
Yeah.
There's
Nice.
a learning curve, right? And it's like,
Yep.
"Oh my gosh, why did they put it in the wrong spot?" Right? And, you're working
We
through that. How do you get it through, and what does that look like? So at the end of the
yeah.
day,
We make it super simple for people. So, it's just a matter of, if an individual wants to be coached, right? If an individual wants to be coached, it's an online questionnaire assessment. Takes 10 to 15 minutes, right? They meet one-on-one with their coach virtually for what we call a springboard. It's a 30-minute where they go through it, and then between 8 to 12 coaching sessions, minute sessions. So we're talking 3 top, like maximum 3 hours of live coaching over, you know, um, over a 2 to 3 month block, and we 5 minutes a day in the brain gym. That's all. Just 5 minutes. So it is not onerous for people. Now people will do more. Brain gym usage is unbelievable, which is a surprise for us. People like it. They like it. It's guided. There's sort of a virtual coach takes you in. So, but in their first coaching session, after their assessment, after they get all that feedback in their first session, in that 20 minutes, they're onboarded into the gym. They don't have to go and figure it out on their own. Their coach shows them how to get in. They get on board. They do that, and then they direct them where to go. It's not like one of these stop and run. Oh, here's see you later. You figure it out. They say, based on your profile, I want you to do this. Walk into the gym. Oh, there's a bench press here. There's a leg press there. Well, I don't know which one to use. I don't know how to strengthen myself. On the coach, they navigate you through, and they say 5 minutes a day on this. This is what you need to do, and I'll see you next week for 20 minutes. So it's not onerous in terms of time, and and it's time limited. This is really important, Bernie. We don't want to create dependency. We want to empower people to be custodians of their own health. Like, I don't need to talk to the trainer when I go to the gym. Now I know what I need and I know what to do. This is what we want people to do. We want them to know what they need, know how to do it, and support them in applying it the first few times and then on their own. It's get them out of the nest, right? Right. Get them out of the nest. And because people don't want to be tied down, right?
Yeah. So size of organization, is this like for a 1, 2-man company, or is this like for 10, 15,000 people? What?
We've We've done large organizations, yes, yes. And think about it though, I think what's important is, as you say, a proof of concept, we've gradually created, kind of an ecosystem, right? Where we will do different things for different, parts of the organization where there's different felt needs and different skills required, right? We do with a leadership team, right? We go in and work with a leadership team, educating, onboarding them into the framework. Very different from what we do with we can support individuals with a felt need who need more. So they don't end up in EP or they don't end up going off work. Everybody needs coaching, right? Sometimes it's just awareness and education, right? And then people can, do their own thing. So this is all on our website, but, so there's individual coaching for individuals who are at risk, who need that extra support and
Yeah.
extra training. We do power hours, which is group coaching, where we've had thousands on power hours, right? Where you focus in on one skill. Hey, we're going to do this skill today, whoever wants to, and people just drop in. Then we do master classes for leaders. And then in this operating system, in this RISE operating system with, WIBIS, with which we hope leaders will implement, we help to support internal champions that we call catalysts to recognize, implement the controls in place, and evaluate their success, right, in fortifying their workforce, right? So it's sort of an ecological approach. Not everybody needs coaching. Different organizations need different things, and that's really part of our, kind of mastermind. We sort of consult with, leadership teams. Typically with organizations, we come in 3 ways. We come in because there's an occupational health issue, costs, and they have people, and they say, wow, this is great. Then we end up in HR, and then we end up in leadership. The other way we come in is HR. There's safety, performance issues, right? HR is concerned. And so we'll come in that door, and then we'll end up, working with other levels. Or the other door that will often come in, the leadership, is the leadership, be stressed and strained and overwhelmed and just not know how to make sense of the disability costs are through the roof, and they're wanting to come up with like a mental health strategy. We need a mental health strategy, right? And so we have a lot of organizations that have come to us and said, our EAP is not working. It's too late. Our HR, our performance managing people, we don't have anything in the middle. We don't know how to make sense of this. So we kind of sit, we don't replace EAP services. We don't do financial and legal and all that other stuff. We have a wheelhouse. We have a sweet spot. Don't treat illness. We're not a clinical service. We are non-clinical. This is about mental fitness and health, not illness, right? And so, so we sort of find our place in the organization for EAP. So we're trying organizations to invest upstream in their people. You know that people are going to come in with different levels of resource. You know that just like there's going to be physical hazards, there's going to be psychosocial hazards. There's going to be customers and complicated tasks and multitasking, all kinds of demands and requirements to supervise and work closely with others. You know that those things are going to happen. You would not send your individuals and your employees into a physical workspace where you knew the hazards were there and you didn't prepare them. We send them into these things. I think resilience is like a psychological hard hat. It's your PPE, it's your psychological PPE. So you go into the workplace and you're adequately prepared to meet the demands. You know what the demands are. You know what the roles are.
So when I understand to get for a company to hire you to provide the service, if a company has hired you and they're about to do a strategy shift, whether it's, if you're publicly funded and the funding agency says, you know what, we don't have as much
Mhm.
money as we had before. I'm gonna Past story. I think from 1990 to 2018, I don't think there was ever a year where I ever heard we're flush with cash. Not one
Absolutely.
year, not one. And so, like, at a certain point in time, it became a repeat and rinse and repeat story. However, that said, sometimes the crush does come in, or there's
Mhm.
an actual shift in delivery. You know, if you're a manufacturer and all of a sudden today we're not making stuff out of plastic anymore, we're making it out of wood or whatever the case might be,
Absolutely.
and it's going to cause some schisms. Does the company then involve you, say, listen, we're about to go through a disruption, or better yet, a merger? I love mergers, said no one ever. It has its benefits. It took the hospital I was at, it took about 10 years to kind of heal.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We will be brought in proactively sometimes on things and sometimes reactively. It's kind of pay now or pay later, right? Because, what's gonna happen is these things are gonna impact people.
Yeah.
Their impact cuts are gonna impact people. They're gonna impact the morale, all kinds of things. Managing change is really, really difficult, and change anybody who's done change management knows that there is an emotional arc that people move through during changes, right? And so having the emotional capacity to navigate change requires resilience, right? And so, I just think that when organizations, think about how hard it is, uh, you know, to retain good talent, and retain people, right? To recruit, good talent, that's just one side of the, there's the disability cost and the leave cost and the operational disruption when people aren't able to perform and other people have to step in and fill their roles, and then the increased demands on those people. So, um, like for human to the role of leadership is if you want outcomes, if you're responsible for outcomes, profits and productivity and all of those things, you need to be able to manage your resources and your risk. And there's financial risks, there's human risks, and there's financial resources and there's human resources. Really is difficult leadership decisions, but I think futuristic leaders, like leaders that understand, I think, the complexities of today's workplace, recognize the importance of investing in their people. Yeah. It's no longer a nice to have, it has become a need to have. Yeah.
Dr. Jackie, we're coming near the end of our time here, and it's like I could listen. I could keep going. I could see us having another part, partly because I've lived in that space, and as you're talking, I'm going, well, hang on, and this one,
Yeah, and this comes up
walk
and
me.
this comes up.
Yeah, yeah, which is totally fine. If you had to leave a thought for a business, regardless whatever the business is, what is it that you want to impart on them? One or three thoughts that say, listen, if you're experiencing this, you're at the stage where you need this.
If you're recognizing burnout, right? If you're noticing that burnout is a problem and people are going on leave, and that, that your workforce is stressed and strained and there's, health and safety issues, um, mental health is not a personal weakness. It is a system failure. It's a Leaders are in charge of the system. So leaders need to, put proactive systems in place to support and develop their people. Now, the other thing is that businesses are not hospitals, leaders are not there, right? And so most people at work don't need treatment, they need skills. So this is a good thing. So we can be compassionate, but also hold people accountable, right? To be able to do it, to to do their jobs. And I think the most important thing is that, you know, that there are hazards at work. There are hazards at work. There are risks at work. Some of them are invisible, but they are no less, um, you know, um, dangerous, than physical hazards. So we need to know about them, and we need to know that we can actually build, not only, work on that side, mitigate risks, address hazards, but we can actually help people to build their resources. That resilience isn't a mindset, it's a skill set, and that we can train people. And if we train people, they will perform better. And perform better, um, then you're gonna get the outcomes that you're looking for.
You have, I'm just looking at checking on the notes here, a bonus for the audience. You have a resilience snapshot assessment.
Oh, yes,
What's
yes,
that all
yes.
about?
Yeah. Well, if you go to our website, www dash air or .com, there's an FRQ, kind of a short form of our big resilience assessment, which is longer. It's 32 pages. This is just a few pages, but it just takes you a few minutes, gives you a really quick check-in, gives you kind of a global score, interprets that for you, and gives you a sense of your strength and what I call the big four mental muscles. Your capacity to maintain perspective and keep things in proportion when you're under stress. Your capacity to think clearly, to be that mental discipline, to feel fit, to your emotional intelligence and your social competence. So it's just a snapshot, and it gives you a sense of what your sort of strength are. I- This is a brain-based model for big neural circuits. They need to be functioning. They need to be working well together to be a well-rounded person. And so, yeah, it gives you a little glimpse into that, a little bit of taste of the model, and yeah, just some fun, free insight. And if
That's
you want to
perfect.
learn more, you can reach out. Yeah, love to have a
Well,
conversation.
Dr. Jackie, so if they want to reach out, other than air-institutes.com, is there any other means that you want to reach out by?
Well, they can email us, office at air-institutes.com. I mean, those are really the best ways to get hold of us. We're always, around. There's contact forms, all kinds of things. You just, people reach out and we will get back to you. We love having conversations. It doesn't matter where you are in your journey, right? Doesn't matter if you're just starting, if you're just thinking about things, if you're looking to make a change, if you're just, whether you're ready or not, we're here. Try to help you.
I want to say thank you to Dr. Jackie Kinley. So, if you haven't guessed it yet, Dr. Jackie is really passionate about watching people become strong and regain clarity and confidence and capacity. It's about success. When we're all successful, we move much further as opposed to kind of spinning around in a circle. It's like driving with two wheels and one of them is flat. You're just going to go in circles. Not so good. So, mental fitness, it's the key. The program is designed to help you stay fit. And if you need further help, well, then either reach out to Dr. Jackie Kinley, or if you need actual help with yourself, go talk to your doctor, right? But that's part of the path, and knowing when to go get help.
Everything you heard today is for educational purposes only. It's not professional advice. Before you act on anything, talk to a certified expert in your area. Your accountant, your lawyer, someone who knows your situation. We share perspectives. You make the decisions. Want more? Head over to blog.knack4business.com, packed with practical episodes on AI, marketing, leadership, and growth. No fluff, just the good stuff. Subscribe while you're there. Until next time, keep building.